to Twanger's Turntable. I'm Twanger, as usual. I'm always here. This is episode 6 of a series of videos I've been doing about the debuts in my collection. So this is number 6. If you haven't seen the other 5, well, they're there on the page here. You just gotta click the link. So I'm gonna limit this to maybe, I think there's, what is there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in this episode. Some old, some relatively new, and even the new would be probably within more than a decade. Sorry, 10 to 15 years is the newest that I would have in this particular episode, and they're all on vinyl. As I've mentioned in my prior episodes, it's the only 3 formats that I will present here are either cassette, compact disc, or vinyl. My primary listening is on streaming these days, Apple Music typically, but my listening, I guess my preference would be vinyl, and I've only recently kind of reintroduced myself to vinyl. Never entirely went away from it. I've always loved the sound of vinyl, and just the experience of sitting down and listening to vinyl. Being someone that was born in the 60s, grew up in the 70s and 80s, that was the primary format that I would have grown up with. Certainly cassette was there, reel-to-reel, 8-track. But any event, without further ado, I'll move on to the artists I present in this. And if you have not seen my channel before, basically, these are not necessarily all-time best debuts, or I'm not ranking in any order. It's simply just my opinion, and anything I may know about this particular album or artist, I'll share a little bit of that. But nothing too in-depth. My knowledge base is not infinite as far as these acts go, or music. I mean, music to me, listening is just a passion, a pleasure, but certainly not my livelihood. I do have a daytime job. In fact, it's probably been a couple of weeks since I last posted a video, and that's just the way it is with me. So, yeah. So without further ado, I'm going to start with a band from out of Canada here, who originally appeared on a CBC is a television network here in Canada. It's the People's Network. I guess it's owned by the government. CBC, Canadian Broadcast Corporation, and they in the 70s, I guess, had a show that was called Who's New, and this band appeared on that program, and then subsequently were signed by CBC. And I don't know if that's something that happened often back then. I was too young. But to their detriment or benefit, who knows, in hindsight, CBC only, I guess, released a limited run of this debut of about 500 copies, and they were mail order only, from my understanding. It was re-released again later on. It was recorded in 77 and then released in 78. And it's actually, yeah, without further ado, it's FM, their Canadian group here. Black Noise is the name of the title. This is actually the artwork from the re-release. The original artwork was much different. And as I do with my videos, I'll leave a link with a playlist. If you've not heard any of the acts, the artists that I present in here, there will be a link where you can sample them or listen to the whole tune, whatever. But it will be available to you. But yeah, this Set Your Phasers on Stun. Well, I guess it was just called Phasers on Stun. Was the name of the big tune, the big hit off of this. They did pretty well. Probably best known, I guess, for their vocalists. The main man in the band was well, that's hard to say, but Nash the Slash, and he passed away, I think, in 2014. But I think this was the only album he appeared on. No, I should say that he did, I think, come back in the and did some work with the band again in the '80s or something. But after this debut, he departed and did his own stuff, solo stuff, and did a lot of. He was, kind of a very eclectic dude, and wanted to do different stuff. This is very experimental, new wave, progressive rock. Even, I mean, there's a lot of elements to this, but certainly in that new wave movement that was springing up in the '70s, late '70s, would certainly be easily categorized into that. But it's very progressive. But it's really good. I actually like it. Of course, I don't think I knew of them. Certainly, the lead title on here, Phases on Stun, or not the lead title, but the song that was most popular, I remember hearing it quite often, in fact, and I got a lot of radio play here in Canada. But it's a really good album, good band. But Nash the Slash was the main dude in this band, I think, by most critics, I guess. But yeah, they appeared on that CBC program, What's New, signed a deal. Later they were signed by another label here in Canada, probably says on here. Not important. Passport Records, I guess, is what that's why it has the alternative cover art. And I should have pulled up the actual original artwork here for you, so you could see. Maybe the original artwork is more familiar to some. But anyway, I didn't have that prepared, so it's not here. Yeah, good debut from 1978, FM Black Noise. Again, if you've not heard it, I'll leave a link at the bottom of the page here, where you can listen to sample some of these. That's the back artwork. That's the cover. I'll pull it out of these sleeves here. I like to keep them in the sleeves, protect them. And and they're just a three-piece band. So the sounds they produce are amazing. You could maybe liken them to some of Rush's stuff, maybe on Hemispheres, but even that's a stretch. Just very progressive in that way. And for a three-piece band, they do so much. And I'll give you a sample of the inner sleeve there. That's Nash the Slash there. Later he would go on and he'd usually cover himself in almost in a mummy's outfit, cover up all his face and bandages and whatever. But that's their debut from '78, Black Noise. I'll just set those aside. Next up is also a group from here in Canada. And their debut would be from, and these are not, I'm not going to put them in chronological order. It's just, I just picked the next 7 I had, and I'm going to kind of randomly present them. But 1982, Coney Hatch, from a band here in Canada as well. Love this one. This is one I'm quite familiar with. In fact, I think I first heard it on a compilation of Masters of Metal, either 1 or 2, I don't recall, but Hey Operator was one of the tunes on that compilation. And of course, it's probably just as well known, or better known, by Monkey Bars, watching cars on the Monkey Bars. Just great. It's not metal. It's just straightforward rock, maybe even a hard rock you could, but argue. But good Canadian group, and this is their debut from '82. But they're from Toronto. I think they came out with three albums: '82, '83, and '85. 1982, 1983, 1985. And I think they still do stuff, But good Canadian band, probably well known globally. How well, I'm not sure, but certainly a good debut that the circles I ran with was very, very well known, popular. That's the group there, and the cover. I always liked it, still like it. Put it on to spin, once in a while. I think I was just listening to it last week. But a lot of the stuff that I have here, as I alluded to, I've only recently, and by recently, probably the last 3 or 4 years, I've had a lot of vinyl over the years that I purchased and then was sitting in storage, and recently, again within the last 3 or 4 years since we've lived at this location, I've unpacked a lot of them and started listening to them again, and it's become a real just rediscovering the love I have for vinyl. It's my preferred format to listen to, and so I probably got I'm approaching the neighborhood of maybe 400 or so titles on vinyl now, and that one I probably a lot of them, most of them are not new, and the ones that are new obviously are reissues because I tend to still gravitate towards older stuff. That's just my preference. I do like some newer stuff, but chances are if I'm going to listen to something newer, it's going to be on the streaming service. What speaks to me typically are drums, percussions, and whatnot. And I was noticing the other day as I'm listening to some of this stuff, most of the stuff that I have, and maybe it's just the way I hear it, but a lot of the percussions and drums are really up front, like they're really out front in the mix of a lot of this stuff, and maybe that's why I like it so much. But generally, if I heard it first on vinyl or cassette, that's the way I prefer to listen to it, and I just really like vinyl, if I haven't said that enough already. But next up, I'm going to stick with early 80s. This one would be 1983, and this is really new wave. In fact, when this one was first released, it was, this gentleman is out of Germany, back when Germany was East Germany and West Germany. And, it was initially released in 82 as a German release, but then it became, even in German, it became quite popular, and so it was reissued and released in 83 in Canada and the US and probably the rest of the English-speaking globe. But yeah, Peter Schilling, 1983, Error in the System, and this is probably best known for Major Tom, Part 1 and 2, and I'll include those on the playlist as I alluded to. But there's some good, quirky, new wave style music on here, and some of it is in German. I guess similar to back in that day, there was a group, a female-led group called Nina, right? 99 Red Balloons or Luftballons. For whatever reason, a lot of the German artists were really taking off around, maybe not just around that time. I mean, you go back to the 70s and Kraftwerk and stuff like that, right? Yeah, there's a lot of German bands that were really good, Scorpions, except a lot, stuff that I really like. So, but yeah, Peter Schilling, Major Tom, Error in the System. This is his debut from '83. I guess technically '82. It was released in Germany, but globally '83, North America, whatnot. And did quite well with this. But yeah, the whole thing is pretty good. It's again, I'm not crazy about doing comparisons, but it gives a similar vibe to me of the Gary Newman, Two-Way Army kind of new wave stuff that was quite popular in pop culture at the time, and so I was still young enough at that time, probably not to appreciate it as much because I was more into the hard rock and metal, but I do tend to revisit a lot of this stuff now as I'm older, and it brings back some memories that are associated with a lot of this music of people, places, and things. Mostly the people, right? That's the so. As I say that, a shout out to all my friends and families wherever you may be. Hope you're tuning in, and hope you're enjoying. And if you don't, you can always switch the channel. I'm gonna take a pause right there because I wanna mention something that I was presented, and for me it's awesome. But anyway, a lifelong buddy of mine just sent this to me. I'm gonna give a shout out to him because this is awesome, right up my alley, and he told me basically as soon as he saw it, he thought of me, so that's awesome. I appreciate that, Mike. But, yeah, I won't be able to get the whole thing in the shot, but if you can see that. I used to have stuff like this all over my bedroom, and in fact, I used to paint stuff on my walls. My mom was awesome to allow me to do stuff like that. I guess she figured it would be one way to keep me home and out of trouble with any luck. Not so sure how well that worked sometimes, but yeah, really appreciate that, Mike. That's going to look good when I get a place to hang it up here. I love Iron Maiden. That's probably my favorite group of all time. But Anyway, back on track. Yeah, just a shout out to all my buds and friends, family, you know. Next up is 1979, right at the tail end of 79 actually, so probably most well known on the charts of in 1980, but their debut of the Pretenders, Chrissy, Hein. Yeah, just another one of those bands where always knew about them, always heard them. There was lots of radio airplay, and liked them. I always liked them. Never appreciated them nearly as much as I do now, as a you know, as an older, you know, I don't know. I guess I am middle aged. I'm in my 50s, so can't deny that anymore. But yeah, Chrissy Hind, and love the drums on this again, as I mentioned. You know, Martin Chambers, the drummer on here, and unfortunately, both the guitar player and bass player have since passed away. In fact, quite early on. But this debut, probably best known for Brass in Pocket, and they did a cover of a Kinks tune on here, "Stop Your Sobbing," which is really cool. I really like that one. And there's a few others. I mean, it's a good, solid album. I mean, it debuted at #1 in the UK, right? Chrissy Hine at the time was in the 70s, primarily was over in London, working in the music scene. Their debut, 79, good album. Always liked the Pretenders, still like the Pretenders, but yeah, good debut. Then we'll go rewind a little bit. Like, as I mentioned at the start of the video, most of these debuts aren't necessarily a reflection of what I think are the best or the greatest, or their position in history as far as best-selling. You know, having said that, Pretenders is probably one of the best debuts of all time, sales-wise anyway. But this one is one of my favorites, just as in the prior videos. Sometimes there is one or two that will be in there that are my personal favorites. This is one of my personal favorite debuts of all time, and it came out before I was born, actually, in May of '67, and that's Jimi Hendrix, Are You Experienced? You know, just I don't know if there's much that needs to be said about this debut. It's just such a solid debut. Almost every tune on here, well, in my opinion, every tune on here is awesome. You know, but certainly, Hey Joe, Are You Experienced? You know, Purple Haze, just The Wind Cries Mary, Fire, Foxy Lady. You could name every tune on here, and they're all classics now. I mean, but yeah, short-lived, unfortunately. Original bass player from the Animals produced them. In fact, when he was on tour with the Animals, they were playing in New York when he first saw Jimi Hendrix. In fact, he was playing under the name of Jimmy James at that time, and that would have been in '66. And convinced Jimi Hendrix to come over to London, and kind of took him under his wing. Chaz Chandler, sorry, that was escaping me there. So Chaz Chandler took Jimi Hendrix under his wing, and basically financed him, supported him to release a single, which turned out to be Hey Joe. Single did really well, so then they put the band together, you know, with Noel Redding on bass and Mitch Mitchell on drums. I was reading a book of Jimi Hendrix, and Chaz Chandler was very influential in his stage presence and everything, I guess. And it was his idea for Jimmy to do the famous lighting the guitar on fire and whatnot, which he did, I think, at Monterey Festival and a few places. It became almost not a staple, but something he would do on several occasions. But I guess that was his idea to do something like that. And I think maybe Hendrix was a little reluctant to do it at first because, you know, guitars aren't cheap, and I'm sure, not being a guitar player, but I can just imagine one might become attached to those and not necessarily want to do that. I certainly wouldn't want to do it to my drums, right? So anyway, move on. And some of these things, the albums that I'm presenting are all debuts, but also I have to add some of them may be ones that I probably would have not necessarily purchased, but heard from friends and family and whatnot. And this is one that comes to mind. I used to listen to this at a buddy's place I grew up with back home, Morris Goody. We used to go to his place quite a lot and play video games and stuff like that. And he had this album, and we would listen to this almost every time we'd go there. And this one is from 1982, and it's a band from Down Under, Men at Work, business as usual. Yes, can you believe that? Most people who I grew up with, certainly in the mid '80s to late '80s, being such a headbanger or whatnot, could not imagine. But I actually like it. It's you know. I listen to it now, and I've got those memories and stuff associated with it, with friends and stuff, as I alluded to, and pretty cool, And again, the drums are right at the front of the mix. I was listening to it again last night, and it suffers from that radio way overplayed, syndrome, but it's actually pretty good. I mean, it's not everybody, but I'm sure most people are familiar with, the big hits off of here, Down Under, and Be Good Johnny, and Who Can It Be Now, but, it's pretty solid all the way through, for what it was. I mean, it's borderline new wave, rock, that was quite popular in, the early part of the 80s decade, as far as the top 40 pop, and that was a massive album in that regard. I think it's probably since then sold, I don't even know how many, 10 million copies or more. And one of the tunes on there, that particular tune, Down Under, that was so huge, I guess was sued due to plagiarism or something. I guess there was an old TV program in Australia, Kangaroo something or another, I don't know, but it was settled, I guess, at some point in court, and decided that yes, indeed, they had kind of ripped off that the flute part in that tune, in the Down Under tune. But I don't know what became of it, but just a neat little tidbit. But yeah, good debuts. They certainly went on. I think the one that came after that, Cargo, was 83 or 84, and it was massive as well. I don't know what became of them after that, because I honestly didn't follow them, and I just have those two albums in my collection personally. But yeah, lots of good memories associated with that one. Men at Work, business as usual. Now we'll skip ahead. I mentioned I had some old and some new. This one is relatively new. This one actually came out in the UK. It was released in October of '09, and then followed the North American release was February of 2010. And it's very folk rock. It's a quartet, based out of London. Mumford and Sons. This is their debut. Sigh No More. And I love these guys. It's not all straightforward heavy metal, hard rock all the time for me. Sometimes I just like to chill and listen to some good folk rock, and this is one of the best for sure. The best groups in modern day era for sure, in that genre. I mean, in my opinion, I'm not a critic, and I don't want to, suggest what is best, or worst or whatever. Just a really good band. They put out, I've got all their other stuff too. They put out an album on average, about every 2 years, every 3 years. But yeah, it's basically a quartet all out of London, and I think the banjo player is phenomenal on here. I mean, again, not a banjo player, don't know, but sounds pretty phenomenal to me. In fact, I think he left the band recently, the last year or two or whatnot. I don't know the story behind that. And they did have an EP prior to this in '08, with one of the tunes that appeared on this album, Little Lion Man, was on that EP. Good luck trying to get that. I think I last saw it on Discogs for like $400 or $500 or something. It's only a 4 or 5 track EP, so it won't ever be in my collection, or not anytime soon. This one was produced by Marcus Draves, who also produced bands like Arcade Fire, Coldplay, Bjork, Kings of Leon, and Florence and the Machine. So some of those more popular pop bands, but that's who produced this album, Sigh No More. A lot of really good tunes. Every song on here is actually awesome. If you're in the right headspace, like I say, it's an album I like to put on, chill out. can be sitting here with with Jen, and she'll be reading a book, and I'll be doing some of my research, and that'll be in the background. It's just a really good album. First heard that, I believe I first heard that we were actually on the road going to Arizona. You don't need a lot of these stories, I know, but just memories. Stopped at a Starbucks, grabbing a coffee, and back in the day, I don't know if they still do. I don't go to Starbucks, but they'd have playlists or little, at the time, CDs on the counter of what was playing in their coffee shop, and this was playing. I hadn't heard it on mainstream and radio and all that, because frankly, I typically don't listen to much radio and mainstream and whatnot. But and so I bought the CD on the counter right there, because I thought, wow, this is amazing. And yeah, I like all their stuff. So. Next one up is the last one I have to present, and this one is from 06. July 06 this one was released, and these guys actually had an EP prior to this as well, in 05. And I think I presented this on another social media site that I was frequenting, and I don't frequent it nearly as much now, because frankly it just gets kind of repetitive, but just as an alternative to the hard rock and metal I listen to, similar to the Sigh No More, but it is rock. It's almost a garage lo-fi sound at times, but I really love the rhythm section on this band, the drums, the bass. They just speaks to me anyway, and it's Silver Sun Pickups, and this is their debut, Carnivus. And yes, strange name, but I guess the title of the album is actually almost like an ode to his grandparents. I mean, the guitar player, who is one of the primary members of the band and the vocalist, his grandparents were, I guess, of Greek descent, and their last name was Carnivus with a K. He changed it to a C. Brian Aubert, don't know how to pronounce his name, but he's the guitar player. And yeah, good debut. I mean, they did certainly have some success with that. Some of the most popular tunes would be Lazy Eye. I can't think of the other one. Refer to my list. Lazy Eye. I like them all. Common Reactor is a really good one. 3 Seed, Rusted Wheel, Future Foe Scenarios, Checkered Floor, Melatonin. Start to finish, it is a double vinyl gatefold. You even got the original shrink wrap in there. Like to keep that stuff. But yeah, this is their debut. Good debut. Nothing fancy in here, just the sleeves that I don't use those paper sleeves after I purchase them. They actually do scratch the vinyl, so I typically put them in the plastic sleeves and keep them outside of the gatefold or the outer sleeve, just so it minimizes that the potential for the ring wear and whatnot you get by keeping the vinyl in them. So I put them in these outer sleeves. Invest in Vinyl. They're very similar to the maybe more popular MoFi ones, but I think they're fantastic. Take one of these out of here. This is one of the colored vinyl ones that are kind of cool. Don't know if you can see that. It's somewhat transparent, browns, sparkles, and graphics in it. But yeah, good debut. A lot of comparisons I think have been made to Smashing Pumpkins, fairly or unfairly, I don't know. I can certainly see the similarities, but at the end of the day, I don't think they really sound like Smashing Pumpkins at all once you give them a full listen. But I can certainly see how that comparison was made with this early stuff. But yeah, really good debut. Silver Sun Pickups is the name of the group, and I like all their stuff. I mean, when they followed that up with Swoon, and then Neck of the Woods, all of them. But that's the debut. They did do an EP prior to that. This was '06. They did an EP in '05 called Pikull. It's Pikul, but it's actually pronounced Pikull. And I guess it was a tribute to a buddy of theirs that had passed away. Often people refer to it as pickle. It's not really pickle, but whatever. Splitting hairs, right? It's Pikull. But good debut. Silver Sun pickups. If you haven't heard them, again, I'll leave a link to a sample of some of their material. There'll probably be quite a few samples because I just really like them. As is the case with Mumford and Sons and Hendrix and all these. I like them all. If I have them in my collection, I like them from one reason or another, but ultimately just to listen to. I put it on my turntable and sit back and enjoy. So I'm going to wrap it up with that. If you have any opinions to share on that or comments, leave a comment. If you liked it, leave a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, okay, there's other channels. Subscribe if you want to see more. The next episode I do will be episode 7. And yeah, thanks for checking out Twanger's Turntable. I hope you come back. And until then, yeah, go give your turntables a spin and sit back and listen to some music. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day.